Most men watch their bodies fade after 50. Bob Delmonteque looked 40 when he was 80. The difference wasn't genetics. It was something he did every single morning before the sun came up. This is the story of a man who refused to surrender to time. Bob Delmonteque wasn't a household name like Arnold or Lou Ferrigno. He never won the Olympia, but he accomplished something far harder. He stayed carved up, disciplined, and powerful when most lifters had already given up and gone soft. While others made excuses about age, joints, or metabolism, he kept showing up, and the physique proved it. His real name was reported as Mike Diaz, though the bodybuilding world knew him by his stage name. Even his timeline gets foggy. Some sources claim he was born in 1919. Others say 1926. But here's what nobody disputes. The man looked decades younger than whatever number was on his driver's license. That alone makes him worth studying. Because in an era obsessed with quick transformations and 30-day challenges, Bob Delmonteque's story asks a different question. Not how to get big fast, but how to stay strong when everyone else quits. Before Instagram coaches and supplement empires, fitness spread through a different world. Black and white photos in niche magazines, private training sessions behind closed doors, men who looked like Greek statues posing under studio lights. Their images passed quietly from hand to hand. This was the 1950s. Fitness wasn't mainstream. It was underground, misunderstood, sometimes even taboo. Bob Delmonteque became one of the most recognized physique models of that era. After World War II, a photographer known as Douglas of Detroit helped launch his early modeling career. The images circulated through mail-order magazines, bodybuilding publications, and private collections. Cultural censorship made this risky territory. Fitness photography existed in a gray zone between art, health promotion, and moral panic. But Delmonteque understood something crucial. The camera didn't just capture muscle, it captured discipline. And discipline sold. He wasn't just a model. He was building a brand before anyone called it that. The mail-order physique business was strained by modern standards. Men would send money to the mail, wait weeks, and receive packages of photographs showing poses, development, and conditioning that inspired them to train harder. There were no progress videos, no YouTube tutorials, no Instagram stories, just images that had to speak for themselves. And Delmonteque's images spoke volumes. By the time Hollywood noticed, he was already a legend in gym circles. Muscle and Fitness reported that he trained some of the biggest stars of the Golden Age: John Wayne, Errol Flynn, Clark Gable, even Marilyn Monroe. These weren't public endorsements. They were private sessions, quiet arrangements, the kind of work that happened before personal trainers were a normal part of celebrity life. The studio system demanded bodies that looked good on screen. Delmonteque delivered results without the drama. He understood how to build strength that photographed well, how to keep actors camera-ready during grueling shooting schedules, how to make fitness fit into chaotic Hollywood lives. He wasn't selling shortcuts. He was selling systems. And the stars kept coming back. Picture this: John Wayne, the embodiment of rugged American masculinity, sweating through sets in a private gym somewhere in Los Angeles, taking direction from a man who looked more like a statue than a trainer. That's the kind of quiet power Delmonteque wielded. Not through fame, but through undeniable results. The Hollywood elite didn't need convincing. They needed someone who understood that maintaining a screen presence required more than crash diets and last-minute panic training. It required year-round discipline, the kind that becomes invisible because it's so consistent. Clark Gable, known for his commanding presence and leading man physique, reportedly worked with Delmonteque during an era when actors were expected to maintain their own conditioning without the armies of trainers, nutritionists, and specialists that modern stars employ. There were no meal prep services delivering macro-counted containers to your trailer. No recovery specialists with Normatec boots and cryotherapy chambers. Just a man, some weights, and a system that worked. Delmonteque provided that system. He understood that actors couldn't afford to be sore on set, couldn't risk injury before a big scene, and couldn't look bloated or flat depending on their workout timing. The training had to enhance performance without interfering with the brutal 16-hour days that Golden Age productions demanded. That level of practical intelligence, knowing when to push, when to back off, when to maintain, separated him from trainers who only knew how to destroy their clients in the gym without considering the bigger picture. Then came the space race, and with it, one of the strangest chapters in his career, one that most people have never heard about. American Spa reported that Bob Delmonteque set up a conditioning program to train astronauts. Specifically, He worked with Jim Lovell, the legendary commander who would later survive the Apollo 13 crisis. Other accounts claim he also trained John Glenn in the 1960s, and again in 1998, when Glenn returned to space at age 77. Think about what that means. Astronauts needed more than strength. They needed endurance, flexibility, mental focus, and the ability to perform under crushing physical stress. NASA didn't pick random gym owners for this work. They needed someone who understood how the body adapts, recovers, and performs when everything is on the line. Delmonteque had that knowledge, and he had the results to prove it. He wasn't just training bodies for the mirror. He was training them for survival. The irony is beautiful. While most bodybuilders were obsessing over their bicep peaks and lat spreads, Delmonteque was preparing men to leave the planet entirely. The space program presented unique challenges that nobody in the fitness world had ever confronted. How do you prepare a human body for zero gravity? For the physical stress of launch and re-entry? For the psychological pressure being sealed in a capsule smaller than a prison cell? Hurtling through the void at 17,000 miles per hour? Traditional bodybuilding, building mass for aesthetic purposes, was useless here. In fact, it was counterproductive. Astronauts needed functional strength, cardiovascular endurance that wouldn't quit, and the mental discipline to execute precise movements when their hands were shaking and their heart rate was spiking. Delmonteque's approach aligned perfectly with these demands. He had never chased size for its own sake. He had always prioritized sustainable conditioning, mental clarity through movement, and the kind of discipline that holds up under pressure. When NASA came calling, he was already speaking their language. The same principles that kept Hollywood stars camera-ready kept astronauts mission-ready. But here's the part that really matters. The part that explains why his age looked like a typo. The part that separates legends from guys who had one good decade and then disappeared. Bob Delmonteque had a system, and he followed it every single day. At age 84, the Los Angeles Times profiled him. They didn't just interview him, they documented his exact daily routine. And the details reveal everything. He started each morning with 15 minutes of meditation, then 15 minutes of yoga. Before he ever touched a weight, he was centering his mind and mobilizing his body. Most older lifters skip this. They go straight to the iron, tight and cold, wondering why their joints ache and their progress stalls. Delmonteque understood that longevity starts with breath and movement, not ego and iron. Think about your own morning routine. Most people stumble to the coffee pot, scroll through their phone, and wonder why they feel scattered and stiff. Delmonteque was breathing, stretching, and grounding himself before most people opened their eyes. That 30-minute ritual wasn't wasted time. It was a foundation that made everything else possible. The meditation practice wasn't some mystical woo-woo nonsense. It was practical nervous system regulation. 15 minutes of controlled breathing and mental focus lowered cortisol, prepared the body for physical stress, and created a psychological separation between sleep and training. He wasn't meditating to achieve enlightenment. He was meditating to stay sharp. The yoga that followed wasn't Instagram-worthy contortionism. It was deliberate mobility work. Hip openers, spinal rotations, shoulder circles, ankle mobility drills disguised as traditional poses. By the time he finished those 30 minutes, his body was warm, his joints were lubricated with synovial fluid, and his nervous system was primed for productive training. Compare that to the average 60-year-old who rolls out of bed, cracks his back in 3 places, limps to the gym, and wonders why his squat feels like grinding gravel. The difference isn't age, it's preparation. Delmonteque gave his body what it needed before asking it to perform. After his meditation and yoga, he logged his weight and waist measurements every single day, the same way most people brush their teeth. Tracking wasn't obsession, it was feedback. It kept him honest. It kept him aware. Small changes showed up in the numbers long before they showed up in the mirror. Then came the grooming routine. Personal care before training. This wasn't vanity. It was respect. Respect for the process. Respect for the body. Respect for the work ahead. He treated training like a profession, not a hobby. His weekly training split was simple, sustainable, the kind of program a man could follow for decades without burning out. Monday, chest, triceps, shoulders, sit-ups, and stationary bike. Wednesday, legs and calves, extensions, curls, presses, calf raises. Friday, back and biceps, machine rows, curls, control movements. 3 days a week, no marathon sessions, no destroyed in the gym heroics. just consistent, intelligent volume that his body could recover from. This is where most aging lifters fail. They try to train like they're 25. They chase soreness instead of progress. They wreck their joints chasing a feeling instead of building a foundation. There's a guy at every gym who was massive in his 20s, tells everyone about his glory days, but can barely bench press 2 plates now because he destroyed his shoulders trying to prove something that didn't need proving. He's got chronic elbow tendonitis from years of ego-driven skull crushers. His lower back is a disaster from deadlifts performed with terrible form just to move heavier weight. His knees sound like a bowl of Rice Krispies every time he walks upstairs. And he wonders why his physique disappeared while Delmonteque stayed carved at 80. The answer is brutally simple. Delmonteque trained for longevity. The other guy trained for validation. One approach builds a body that lasts. The other builds a body that breaks. 3 training days per week sounds almost lazy by modern standards. Influencers preach 6-day splits, twice-a-day sessions, constant stimulation, and progressive overload to the point of joint destruction. But Delmonteque understood something they don't. Recovery is where growth happens. Training is just the stimulus. The body adapts during rest, not during the workout. By training Monday, Wednesday, Friday, he gave his body 4 full rest days per week. That's more than half the week dedicated to recovery, adaptation, and repair. At 25, you can abuse your body and bounce back. At 50, 60, 70, rest becomes more valuable than work. And the diet, just as disciplined, just as repeatable. He started each day with hot water, lemon juice, and apple cider vinegar. Then oatmeal or bran with blueberries. Soft-boiled eggs for protein. Throughout the day, he ate frequent servings of fruit. Lunch and dinner featured lean proteins. Fish, chicken, turkey, paired with salads and vegetables. He avoided heavy carbs like bread, pasta, and beans in his sample meal plan. Nothing extreme, nothing complicated. Just the same clean foods, day after day, year after year. Here's what makes that so powerful. Most people can eat clean for a week, maybe a month, but Bob Delmonteque ate like this for decades. No cheat days that turned into cheat weeks. No, I'll start again Monday cycle. He made the choice once, then automated it. Discipline isn't about motivation. It's about elimination. He eliminated the decision by making the routine non-negotiable. Compare that to the average person who swears they'll eat clean starting Monday, does great for 3 days, then demolishes a pizza Friday night and spends a weekend spiraling. Delmonteque never spiraled because the system didn't allow for it. The hot water with lemon and apple cider vinegar wasn't some trendy detox gimmick. It was a practical way to hydrate, support digestion, and create a morning ritual that signaled the start of a disciplined day. The oatmeal and bran provided slow-digesting carbohydrates that kept blood sugar stable. The blueberries added antioxidants and flavor without spiking insulin. Soft-boiled eggs gave him complete protein with intact nutrients that harder cooking methods might degrade. Throughout the day, frequent fruit intake provided quick energy, fiber, and micronutrients that many aging lifters neglect while obsessing over protein and fat macros. The lean proteins at lunch and dinner. Fish with omega-3s for inflammation control. Chicken and turkey for clean protein without excess saturated fat. Paired with vegetables full of fiber, vitamins, and minerals created meals that supported recovery without creating digestive stress. By avoiding heavy carbs like bread, pasta, and beans, he dodged the energy crashes, bloating, and inflammation that make older trainees feel sluggish and uncomfortable. This wasn't a diet plan downloaded from the internet. It was a sustainable eating pattern refined over decades of paying attention to how his body responded to different foods. One Thanksgiving, a longtime friend watched him finish a big holiday meal. Turkey, stuffing, all the traditional dishes. Then Delmonteque quietly excused himself, went into another room, and did 1,000 sit-ups. Who does that after turkey? A man who treats his body like a contract, not a mood. His friends describe a physique that stayed chiseled well into his 70s and 80s. One of them said, "Nobody at his age looked the way he did. Not nobody in his gym. Nobody. Period. That's not genetics. That's decades of showing up when it's boring, when it's cold, when nobody's watching, when the results feel invisible." Delmonteque understood something most people never learn. The body you have at 80 is built by the choices you make at 30, 40, 50, and beyond. You can't out-train decades of neglect, but you also can't lose decades of consistency. There's something almost mythological about a man excusing himself from Thanksgiving dinner to hammer out 1,000 sit-ups. Most people collapse on the couch and unbutton their jeans. Delmonteque tightened his core and got to work. That Thanksgiving story reveals something profound about identity and discipline. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't neurotic compulsion. It was simply who he was. The same way a professional musician might sit down at a piano during a party and play a few scales just to keep their fingers warm, Delmonteque did sit-ups after a big meal because training wasn't something he did. It was something he was. His identity was so completely fused with physical discipline that deviating from it would feel stranger than maintaining it. Most people operate from external motivation. They train because they have a wedding coming up, or because they're trying to impress someone, or because they feel guilty about what they ate. That motivation comes and goes, which is why their results come and go. Delmonteque operated from internal identity. He trained because that's what Bob Delmonteque did. The motivation was irrelevant. The discipline was automatic. When you reach that level of psychological integration, consistency stops being difficult. It becomes easier to maintain the standard than to abandon it. While he trained celebrities and astronauts, he was also building a business empire. Delmonteque operated health clubs with partners, including ventures under brands like JACKED European Health Spas, Executive Health Clubs, and President's Health Club in Houston. Muscle and Fitness noted his role as part owner and operator of Executive Health Clubs International. He wasn't just preaching fitness. He was infrastructure. He helped shape the commercial gym industry before Gold's and 24-hour fitness dominated the landscape. His clubs weren't about selling memberships. They were about building communities of disciplined, goal-driven people who valued long-term health over quick fixes. The business side mattered because it kept him accountable. He couldn't sell what he didn't practice. Every client who walked through the door saw the proof in his physique. He was the advertisement. And at 70, 80, even beyond, the advertisement still worked. Imagine walking into a gym and the owner, pushing 80 years old, has abs that could cut glass. You wouldn't need a sales pitch. The body did all the talking. The health club business in the 1960s and 70s was a completely different animal than modern commercial gyms. These weren't 24-hour access facilities with rows of treadmills and cable machines. They were exclusive clubs, often members only, where serious people came to train seriously. Jack LaLanne was revolutionizing fitness television and making exercise accessible to suburban housewives, but his European health spas catered to a more committed clientele. Executive health clubs targeted business professionals who understood that physical conditioning translated to professional performance, while still maintaining training standards and community culture. Many modern gym owners are business people who hire trainers. Delmonteque was a trainer who built businesses. The priorities were different, and it showed in the culture of his clubs. He loved the shocked expressions when people heard his age. Friends and writers noted this repeatedly. It wasn't arrogance. It was validation. The routine worked. The system held. Time moved, but the standard didn't drop. Here's the uncomfortable truth most aging athletes avoid. Staying jacked after 50 isn't about finding the perfect program. It's about accepting that the program you can do forever is better than the program that destroys you for 3 months before you quit. Delmonteque's training wasn't revolutionary. It was repeatable. And repetition over decades creates miracles. Most people jump from program to program, looking for the magic bullet. German volume training 1 month, smaller the next. Then some influencers push-pull leg split they saw on YouTube. They never stick with anything long enough to see real results. Delmonteque found what worked and rode it for 40 years. That's the secret nobody wants to hear. Boring consistency beats exciting variety every single time. There's a psychological trap that catches most lifters somewhere in their 30s or 40s. They see younger guys in the gym making rapid progress on aggressive programs, and they think, I used to train like that. I should train like that again. So they abandon the sustainable program that's been keeping them in decent shape, and they jump into some brutal high-frequency, high-intensity protocol designed for 22-year-olds with fresh joints and unlimited recovery capacity. For 3 weeks, they feel like warriors. They're sore in that deep, satisfying way that makes them feel productive. Then the elbow starts hurting. Then the lower back tightens up. Then they miss a workout because they're just too beaten down. Then they miss another. Then they're not training at all. And 6 months later, they've lost whatever conditioning they had before they try to recapture their youth. Delmonteque never fell into that trap. He never tried to train like a younger man. He trained like Bob Delmonteque, at whatever age Bob Delmonteque happened to be. The program evolved to match his capacity, not his ego. So, why do the records about his birth year conflict? Some sources say 1919. Others say 1926. That's a 7-year gap. Normally, we dig for the truth. But in this case, the confusion almost feels fitting, because Bob Delmonteque made age irrelevant. Whether he was 78 or 85 when he died in 2011, the principle remains the same. His body defied every timeline. The confusion around his exact age only reinforces how little the number mattered compared to the condition he maintained. He practiced what he preached. That phrase gets thrown around too easily, but with Delmonteque, it was literal. He couldn't teach astronauts about conditioning if he wasn't conditioned. He couldn't train Hollywood legends if he didn't look legendary. He couldn't sell the fitness club lifestyle if his own lifestyle didn't prove the results. Identity and action were the same thing. There's a brutal honesty in that. No hiding behind certifications or credentials. Just show me your body. Show me what decades of your method produced. That was Delmonteque's resume, and it never lied. The confusion about his birth year might stem from the nature of the physique modeling world he emerged from. Many models use stage names, altered biographical details, and maintain a certain mystery around their personal lives. Some did this for privacy. Others did it because the photography business existed in legal and cultural gray areas where discretion was valuable. Stage names allowed men to maintain separate professional and personal identities. Mike Diaz could live a normal life while Bob Delmonteque appeared in magazines and trained celebrities. The dual identity also meant that official records and industry publicity didn't always align. Add in the fact that looking decades younger than your actual age means nobody really believes you when you tell them how old you are, and the biographical confusion becomes understandable. When you look 50 at 70, people assume you're lying about being 70. When you look 40 at 80, they assume you're lying even more. The physique became better documentation than any birth certificate. During his final years, Iron Man magazine reported that he dealt with brain cancer for several years before passing away on November 21st, 2011, in Malibu, California. Even in decline, his daughter noted, his message stayed consistent. Longevity isn't about extremes. It's about sustainability. Not hype, not gimmicks, not 30-day transformations. Just decades of intelligent, patient, disciplined effort. Bob Delmonteque's story sits at a strange intersection. Hollywood glamour, Apollo-era astronauts, underground physique photography, commercial gym expansion, celebrity training, and through it all, one man who looked 40 when the calendar said 80. His legacy isn't a single contest win or a record-breaking lift. It's proof that the body responds to consistency more than intensity, that showing up beats showing off, that tracking beats guessing, that routine beats motivation. Most people want the secret, the one trick, the hidden method. But Delmonteque's secret was the opposite of hidden. He published it. He lived it. He showed it to anyone willing to look. The brain cancer diagnosis must have been devastating for a man whose entire identity revolved around physical mastery and mental discipline. Cancer doesn't care about your training split. It doesn't respect your decades of clean eating or your morning meditation practice. It's a reminder that even perfect discipline can't guarantee perfect outcomes. But here's what matters. Delmonteque faced his final years the same way he faced every morning for decades. With dignity, with consistency, with the quiet understanding that you control your effort, not your outcome. He couldn't control the cancer, but he could control his response to it. His daughters note that he maintained his message about sustainability, even during decline, tells you everything about his character. He didn't become bitter. He didn't abandon the principles just because they couldn't save him from mortality. He understood what most people never grasp. Discipline isn't about achieving immortality. It's about living fully in whatever time you're given. Delmonteque had more good years, more capable years, more vital years than almost anyone else who's ever touched a barbell. The cancer took him eventually, but had to wait in line behind 8 decades of powerful living. 15 minutes of meditation, 15 minutes of yoga, 3 lifting days a week, clean food repeated daily, measurements logged every morning, a standard that never dropped, no matter how old the man holding it became. The question isn't whether it works. The question is whether you're willing to do it when nobody's watching, when the progress feels invisible, when the scale hasn't moved in a month, when your friends have quit, when the gym is cold and dark, and you'd rather stay in bed. Bob Delmonteque answered that question every single morning for decades, and the physique spoke louder than any words ever could. There's a specific kind of pride that comes from maintaining something while the world expects you to let it go. Not arrogance, not vanity, just the quiet satisfaction of proving that age is a number, but discipline is a choice. Delmonteque earned that pride, and he wore it in every photo, every training session, every shocked expression from people who couldn't believe what they were seeing. Think about what it means to maintain a disciplined lifestyle for 40, 50, 60 years. Most people can't maintain a consistent gym habit for 6 months. They sign up in January, burn out by March, and repeat the cycle next year. Delmonteque woke up before dawn and meditated through the Kennedy assassination, the Vietnam War, Watergate, the fall of the Berlin Wall, 9/11, and the financial crisis of 2008. He trained through every cultural shift, every technological revolution, every trend that came and went. Disco rose and fell. Punk happened. Grunge happened. The internet arrived. Social media exploded. Through all of it, Delmonteque was doing yoga in the morning, training 3 days a week, eating his oatmeal with blueberries, and logging his measurements. That's not discipline. That's something beyond discipline. That's a life built around a non-negotiable core. Everything else could change. The body standard couldn't. This is what old-school bodybuilding longevity looks like. Not the guy who looked great for 5 years and disappeared. Not the champion who peaked at 28 and spent 40 years telling the same stories. But the man who built a physique that lasted, a routine that held, and a standard that never bent. Most lifters train to look good for summer. Bob Delmonteque trained to look good for time. And when time came for him, it found a man who never surrendered. There are other names like his. Other quiet legends who stayed strong long after the applause faded. Men who understood that real strength isn't measured in trophies. It's measured in decades. Their stories deserve to be told too.